Whenever I get to an area, what I like to do is get my shelter set up for whatever configuration I'm going to be using it for. And from there, I like to kind of walk around the area and take a look at what resources are available. But I don't necessarily want to carry, a half empty pack or a big pack around just to go in the immediate area. I'm never really going too far from where my shelter location is, so I don't worry about having a complete 10 Cs kit or a complete, emergency kit, but I do like to have some things available. But typically I like to walk around the general area of my camp with just the ability to carry maybe just a water bottle and a haversack and a small amount of kit. So one solution that I use sometimes is what I call the bare minimum belt. It's kind of, I want to still have some tools available, but I don't want to carry my entire kit, and of course my shelter is already set up. But when I'm going on a resource walk, I really want to be able to gather those resources. So the ability to have the majority of my kit elsewhere, not stuffed in my haversack, taking up room that I could be using for resources, is the bare minimum belt concept, the Bushcraft belt concept works really well for me. And this is kind of like the full blown, if I was doing nothing but going out with a haversack, maybe for extended periods. But you can kind of modularly add to or take away from this belt. But just to give you an idea of what it is, I've got my belt, and then I've got my fire kit on here that's ready to go if I'm out there and get stranded and it was an emergency. At a bare minimum, I've got the ability to make a fire. So my fire, and technically my belt knife, which is on this side, which we'll come around to. If I've got that in my water, I'm pretty well set. Then as far as tools, like cutting tools, I like to carry a small axe for some applications, or a saw. Sometimes I need both, especially if I'm felling trees. I like to kind of notch it and get it started with a small axe and then finish that cut with a saw. So I like to have those. Continuing around, I like to have a small first aid kit. Anytime you're carrying a cutting tool, you need to carry something to stop a bleed, because there's a good chance that that could happen. So I've got my Nomad first aid pouch that's got some compressed gauze, some quick clot in here. And of course, that I can use to kind of stop a bleed really quick. So it's just a minimalist first aid kit on the outside. Then of course, my puko, my knife, my belt knife. Definitely want to have that at all times. And this is one of my favorite pieces of kit. This is basically a Bushcraft dump pouch. So it folds up nicely, but I can open that up when I find a good resource that I want to collect. And that gives me a bag that's hanging right off the side of my belt to be able to collect those resources. So what that allows me to do is pick and choose kind of out of that array of gear what I want to take with me to go look for resources. All that stuff's, the weight's carried on my hips. It's not uncomfortable at all. Really like that belt concept. Throw this over my shoulder, and then I've got an empty haversack that I can throw over the other shoulder. So as I find resources, I can put them in here. The only thing I would add to that, it's empty to gather resources, but some of those resources are, tinder. That's what I'm looking for my fires. So I'll keep a little SAMI pouch inside there. So that way when I find tinder, I actually put it inside here. That way it doesn't get mixed up with the other resources inside the bag. So that's a really kind of lightweight kit that you can put together. And again, it's modular. You can take away what you don't need. I don't need an axe all the time. I don't need a saw all the time. But at a minimum, fire kit, belt knife, and because I'm carrying a belt knife, a small first aid kit, that's a really good system to have when coupled with that water bottle and a haversack. Really easy to get a lot of resources, get them back to camp, and it's a really comfortable way to carry it without having to carry a big pack and carry all of your gear.